This is Emmanuel Rose on the Spec Kitty episode 2 founder conversation, and I'm with Robert Douglas, who is the creator of Spec Kitty, an open source tool designed to solve one of the biggest unsolved problems in AI assisted development, maybe just in development in general, which is turning product intent into implementation through a repeatable spec driven path from spec to plan to task to implementation to review and merge. Rob, thanks for spending some time talking about Spec Kitty.
Emmanuel, you know there's nothing else I like to do more than talk about Spec Kitty, so I'm glad to be here.
Oh, well, the first thing I want to ask you about is what was some of the feedback you got from your trip to America to DrupalCon? Do you have any feedback?
Ah, I have, so yeah, DrupalCon. I have a deep history with the Drupal project, and going to DrupalCon is always a joy for me. And this was meant to be a special DrupalCon because there was a 25-year gala being thrown, and all of the old timers like myself were meant to show up in fancy clothes and eat fancy food and congratulate each other and shake hands and slap each other's backs and go home happy. That
Yeah.
didn't happen for me. I got sick. I was laying in
Oh.
bed for days, and I missed the gala altogether. So Drupal has to go on for another 25 years, so I can do the 50-year gala.
All right. Well, that is sometimes how it goes. You cannot fight the body. We know that.
But I did have a meeting with a friend of mine, Alex UA, who's the founder and CEO of ZivTech, which is a renowned agency in Philadelphia who have cut their teeth doing years and years and years of high-profile Drupal projects. And Alex has become quite a Spec Kitty aficionado and is using Spec Kitty in his day-to-day work, as are the people within his agency. So we did have a chance to sit down and compare roadmaps and wish lists and success stories and make some world domination plans together about what we're going to do to bring Spec Kitty forward together.
I love it. Well, that's good news. At least you had some forward motion on that, huh? I'm curious. I'd love to hear more about the Spec Kitty training that you did. Uh, I think it was 2 days ago with kind of a legacy software project. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the biggest market signals that we've gotten as Spec Kitty prior to launching any self-service commercial offering, aka a SaaS, has been the demand for training. And this demand really started kicking in about 3 months ago. And in those 3 months, I've essentially done trainings for serious software development teams inside of companies every week. And we've also extended the training program to have French, German, Dutch speaking trainers in Europe. And
And Flemish,
Alex,
I think, too, right?
well, Dutch and Flemish, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And Alex UA and ZivTech are capable trainers in North America. So we've expanded our training footprint to throughout Europe, throughout languages, and throughout North America as well. So these training offerings are there for anybody who wants to bring ordered, disciplined, spec-driven coding into their organizations and benefit from the velocity of AI coding without suffering the sloppy side effects that some have been associated with AI coding in some cases. So the one very common theme permeates the trainings that I've been doing so far, and that is these are companies who have successful products, successful software products, usually 10 years, 20 years, sometimes as many as 30 years old on the market. They're not about to be unseated by upcoming startups because they service electric works or city bus lines or medical establishments or anyway they've got very entrenched software They've got very stable customer bases, but they have this problem that their software is old. And that means the frameworks that in which it was written are old. So one company that I worked with is in the middle of a 9-year migration from Virtual Basic 6 to .NET 7 to
Wow.
modernize.
How many year? How do you even
And they
plan for a decade-long transition?
and they've been doing the migration for 9 years, and a lot of their customers run the old system and the new system side by side and
Oh,
simply fulfill different things in the different systems. And it's okay because it's still the best software for that purpose on the market. And it's
yeah,
much more important that nothing breaks than it is that it goes fast. However, these companies really want to break out of the shackles of their technical debt. They want to modernize as much as makes sense, and they want more velocity. A lot of these companies are spending 35, 40, 50% of all of their engineering capacity on bug fixing. And the hope that they have when they come to me is that agentic coding will accelerate the bug fixing, will accelerate repeatable migration paths from old technology to new technology, or that it can simplify repeatable workflows in general. So another company that I trained has a data intake pipeline where it always looks the same. The customer defines data that they want to migrate. It gets hooked up to all sorts of connectors and field mappings. It gets sucked into their highly generalized database that can support any data structures on Earth. And then it gets transformed into a target database. So you could think of it like an e-commerce to new e-commerce platform migration tool, or ERP to new ERP, or CRM to new CRM. Things like that are the typical cases. And one of the things that they want to do with Spec Kitty is they want to be able to do all of the analysis of the data structures, the mapping to the fields, the transformations into the new fields, basically in an automated process. And they're interested in Spec Kitty missions to do that, because Spec Kitty missions are a set of inputs, a set of procedural steps, and a set of outputs that you can define and then run repeatedly. So those are some of the types of trainings that I'm seeing. Just one last note on the one that you asked about specifically. They are using a language that is almost extinct. The proprietary vendor probably has a rapidly shrinking customer base. It's an entire studio and language and runtime environment, all proprietary by a single company.
wow.
And that kind of flies in the face of where you would start if you were going to develop software with modern tools. You'd start with open source languages, open source frameworks, so that you weren't locked into a vendor's proprietary world. They're locked in, and their code is super old. And since it's proprietary, they were in doubt that the base models like Codex or Claude would be able to, in fact, successfully write code, understand the complexities of the build environment and the runtime environment. And we spent the entire first day simply validating that these tools can, in fact, run in their environment as well.
Nice.
So it worked, and there were lots of smiles on their faces, and they were enthusiastically telling their colleagues over lunch about the successes we'd had. And the next part of their training then will be to plug that all into the Spec Kitty workflow so that they can roll that out to all of the developers working on their tools in an organized way without creating more chaos and rework in the
Wow.
process.
Yeah, and that has to be, I mean, just from an emotional side, just like a sense of freedom for that whole team, right? To be able to kind of come out and smell the fresh air and see sunshine again from being locked in that environment.
Yeah, in a way, I imagine it is, because if I think about their situation, they're going to work day to day locked into this antiquated system. And it doesn't matter how much self-study they do outside of that, if they learn the newest frameworks or teach themselves Rust or whatever, none of that applies to work. And they're
Yeah.
shackled to really old syntax, really old software, etc. And then
Yeah.
Spec Kitty comes along and they leapfrog into the 21st century and have computing capabilities that most of us wouldn't have even held as possible several years ago, where
Right.
we're talking to our computers as if they're a senior programming member of our team and giving them our intent and watching them go and write code and read files and understand the lay of the land faster than any human can. So I think it was a breath of fresh air, and I could feel the excitement in the room as we did
I
experiment
bet.
after experiment and had success.
Yeah, I can imagine. Nobody likes to be trapped, especially really smart programmers, and they want to be able to use their brain and tap into these new tools and have some creative freedom as well. Um, so, explain a little bit to me about how, I mean, everybody's got access to Codex or to Claude, and the teams all have access to that. But explain to me why a product like Spec Kitty sitting on top of that is even interesting to code development teams.
It's a governance layer, really. That's what it is. So Spec Kitty is there to make sure that your organization can make decisions at an organizational level about how you write code, what your red lines are, what your no-goes are, what your absolute invariants are, and then have that filter down into the project level, where that can be adjusted to a certain extent for the peculiarities of any given project, and then for there to be a ironclad step-by-step process for taking product requirement documents or Jira tickets or linear tickets and putting them into the process for Claude Code or Codex or Gemini to work on, while leaving behind an auditable trail of artifacts that spell out all of the decisions that were made along the way, and by whom was the decision made, and what were the alternatives that were considered, and what was the suggestion going into the coding phase for how to do the implementation. In an ideal world, if you lost your implementation, you'd be able to go back to the specification and regenerate the code, and it would
Yeah.
come out the same, or at least enough the same that you wouldn't be able to visibly discern the difference from the outside by testing it. So the governance layer is something that we call doctrine, and it has things like paradigms and strategies and tactics that you use as a coding team for success. And everybody has different philosophies and different ideas. For example, some people might like to break things down all along the lines of domain-driven development from Martin Fowler. And other people have never heard of that and don't do that. You can use Spec Kitty doctrine to enshrine these practices at a systemic level, and then they permeate all of the steps that the coding agents take, and they are customizable at the project level, but they really give this sense of structure and discipline to the agentic coding that is otherwise missing. And if you couple that with the audit trail that's left behind by Spec Kitty, that means you can look at the result of what has been coded and see why it is the way it is, and you can verify that what you asked for is what you got, and you can look down to the functional requirements and the non-functional requirements line by line. Are these all done? Are they all done to specification? Were they reviewed? Were they signed off on? And if so, by whom? And this then gets propagated into Git as a part of your project history, and it informs then the next round of development, so that all of the subsequent rounds of development build upon the prior decisions that you've made with the guidelines that you've set down.
Wow, it sounds like a like project management philosophy, business intent, and code development in a really sophisticated process.
Yeah, it ties together product owners, project managers, and software architects in a really beautiful way because it actually thinks about the same feature or mission that you're about to do from all of those levels. It thinks about it from a product ownership level. It thinks about it from an organizational level of what you have to do first, what you have to do second, what's dependent on what, who's dependent on who. And then from the software developer point of view, it brings in all of the frameworks like your decisions around testing and CI/CD, your security profiles, your tech stack requirements, and all of that. And it unifies those in one set of artifacts for every change that you're making in your software.
I love it. I love tools that can bring and unify and create conversation and then create output. It's beautiful. Talk a little bit about current state of Spec Kitty and what you're seeing for the next 30 to 60 days in terms of product roadmap.
Yeah, sure. So every day I get up and I build Spec Kitty, and I build Spec Kitty using Spec Kitty. And while I'm building Spec Kitty with Spec Kitty, I'm improving Spec Kitty so that I can build Spec Kitty with Spec Kitty better.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, so you're drinking the Kool-Aid at this point.
It's yes, it's a very circular and meta process, and I love it. So we are rolling out features and improvements to the core functionality at a very fast pace, and it gets better and better and smoother day by day. More efficient, more token efficient, faster, more accurate, fewer cases where I didn't get what I wanted and I don't know why. Almost always now I get exactly what I'm looking for every time, and I can really trust it. In the meantime, I'm also thinking, okay, what are the use cases for Spec Kitty now, and how can we broaden them so that it's more generally applicable? So
Yeah.
one of the facets of Spec Kitty right now is that it's very well suited for longer feature development arcs. So if you have a big change request, then it really makes sense to go through the specification, the planning, the tasks phase, have everything reviewed. The Git work tree setup is optimal for isolation of every agent working on it, so you can work on things in parallel. And some of these missions that I run take between 2 and 6 or 7 or 8 hours sometimes, but they're very big feature changes. And that's great, and that's not changing, but I also then have phases where either I just want to talk to the LLM about the architecture and ask questions and make suggestions and do hypothetical brainstorming, and then record decisions when I've made them. And I also sometimes want to do smaller bug fixes or small changes. And right now, those fall outside of the purview of Spec Kitty. So one of the things that we're bringing in are agentic profiles that are good for each one of those use cases so that you can do those and Spec Kitty gets activated and it continues to learn about your software architecture decisions. It continues to learn about the charter level decisions that you're making for your project and for your company. And it continues to record your activities in a way that build up the memory of the system over time. Even when you're doing small bug fixes, even when you're doing small tasks, and even when you're simply brainstorming about the architecture or the future. So the roadmap going forward involves broadening the use cases of Spec Kitty so that it's not always a heavy, long-winded mission for a large software development, which is absolutely the right thing to do if it's a big feature.
Sure.
But if it's not such a big feature, then there will be ways to invoke agents within SpecKitty that are lightweight and more nimble and responsive to smaller changes.
I love it. And so obviously you're using Spec Kitty in the development cycle of Spec Kitty, but where are you also getting feedback and ideas for how the product's going to change?
Well, we have a quite active issue queue, and there are really a dozen or more people who regularly have input or feedback about their own use of SpecKitty, either directly to me or through the GitHub issue queue. So I'm getting a lot of feedback from people, colleagues, friends, customers about their day-to-day use of SpecKitty, and I take that all into consideration as well. And then some of the people who are really power users, like Alex UA from ZivTech, he and I are planning design sessions where we look at some of the common features that we've identified on the roadmap, where we have a particular overlapping interest in seeing them done. And I'll get design feedback from him on things like that. We also have a co-maintainer for SpecKitty, Stan de Jong in Ghent, Belgium. He's primarily responsible so far for the doctrine level, the multi-layered governance layer on SpecKitty. There's a big change to that rolling out really soon that highly expands the involvement of the charter. We used to call it the Constitution, but we just changed the name to Charter.
Yeah.
And so the doctrine will be making more and more of a difference in day-to-day SpecKitty use, thanks to Stan's work. So we have quite a few people who are heavy-hitting design thinkers giving feedback. Also, our very own Jen Krieger, who used to work at GitHub and Red Hat, has lots of feedback on the product placement in terms of which audiences it is particularly good for and what we need to do to make it really useful for them. So we're getting plenty of feedback, but more is always welcome. If you have opinions about SpecKitty, or if you have questions about SpecKitty, then there are lots of channels to contact us through. LinkedIn is fine. The GitHub issue queue is fine. Emailing is fine.
All right. Well, I got to say, as a person who you've included on your team, the people who you've surrounded yourself with, and the people in your network are all very high quality professionals, and I've enjoyed working with and meeting each and every one of them, which is I can't say that about a lot of other projects I've been on. So
it's well,
a testament.
Thank you on behalf of my network.
And you're the hub of that network, Rob. So yeah, it's an impressive group of people and active contributors, which is nice. So it's been fun to work with everybody and meet everybody from all over the world.
Yeah, we're putting together quite an impressive team for SpecKitty. It's true.
Yeah. So what's your estimate on when the SaaS is going to be? How many weeks are we, and what is that going to mean for SpecKitty?
Well, the launch of the commercial offer and the online team space is going to be significant for SpecKitty users, because right now SpecKitty is great for solo developers. It gives you a great view into your own work, but it doesn't really show you what other people are up to. It doesn't directly assist you currently in cross-project planning. It doesn't tie into your ticket tracker systems like Jira or Linear. It doesn't correlate what it's done with the pull requests or the code on GitHub or GitLab, and it doesn't give you any notifications through channels like Slack. Right. And those are all things that are going to be unlocked when the team space online becomes available. Everybody who is currently using SpecKitty should be eagerly awaiting that. It's going to be some weeks still, but it's fewer weeks than last week.
Well, we know that in the world of software, it never goes fast enough, and then when it does get released, it's usually broken. So we know we're in for a little bit of work still to get the SaaS live and use and working correctly.
We're going to try to avoid the broken part on that.
Well, of course we are. But yeah, it's I'm excited about to see what we deliver in the SaaS and how it works, and then figuring out who's going to start using it for us. So looking forward
It'll
to
be
that.
quite easy for people to try. There's no there's no mechanism that forces you to connect to the online team space. But if you do choose to connect, then all you have to do is register on the site and then authenticate using your Spec Kitty CLI, and then the status of all your projects will be visible in an overview, and you can sign up for notifications through different channels. And then if you connect your Jira or your Linear or your GitHub or your GitLab, then you'll get a lot more possibility to do things like, hey, Spec Kitty, grab me that Linear ticket that we're doing about authentication, and let's implement that as the next mission. And Spec Kitty will be able to look into your Linear projects and see what ticket you meant, link it to that mission, and keep it in lockstep as the mission develops, so that if you have dashboards on Linear, they'll be up to date in the moment as Spec Kitty progresses. And you'll also be able to see on the team space, the Spec Kitty team space itself, how you and all of your other colleagues are progressing through epics and stuff like that that you've got defined elsewhere, like in Jira.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think what we'll do next week for our episode is if you're ready, we'll do the deep dive into the processes and systems of Spec Kitty and how to best get good results from it.
That sounds good.
All right, I love it. It's good to see you. I'm gonna close it out here, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, thanks for watching, everybody.
All right, go to out. Look at spec-kitty.ai and start using the tool. Send us feedback on LinkedIn, or post something amazing about